Hey everybody, this is Herschel Fromm from High School Top 200. This Shirley Boys High School Review of 2016 is brought to you by Fineline Barbers. Now what Fineline Barbers has done is that they've teamed up with a majoring barbering supplier here in New Zealand, and they are bringing to the Aotearoa Barber Competition. This competition is happening in September 2017. They're going to be putting out a Facebook page as well as an Instagram page so that we can keep up and track what's going on with the Aotearoa Barber Competition. These Facebook page and also the Instagram page is for barbers around the country to put their work up and upload all their work onto these onto the Facebook and also the Instagram, so that we as the public can see it and we can also support our barbers locally before they come to the competition. You can also get your haircut cut by these guys as they come up to competition in September, which is a great thing as well. So we can sort of be fans of these barbers kind of thing. You don't have to be certified, you don't have a certificate. If you're just talented, you can still jump into the competition. So look out for that competition in September 2017, the Aotearoa Barber Competition set up by Vinnie from Fineline Barbers. Shirley Boys High School was one of my favorite teams in the South. For some reason I just really liked the way that they had their roster structured. I like the way that they set their team up, sort of the way that they play. I'm a fan of guys in there like Cruz and also Logan. I like Liam and Glenn as well, like Glenn Hum or Hume, and also Glenn Beardsley. I like guys like that. I just like the style of which they play, and also and they've kind of been setting this up, making a big push for this year, and Shirley Boys, who hasn't been in the spotlight for a while. They had to do something like this, where they built a team, where they structured a team, where they made sure that all these boys were all coming through at the same time, kind of thing. Like Brendan and Samson, the two twins at center and wing, along with like Logan, were all real key players to this backline. Jackson Taylor, who will be back as well, and Nathaniel Bolt. Like, these guys all were sort of brought through at the same time and hit their year 13s all at the same time. And it was set up like this so that they could have a strong year. And they proved it. They did have a strong year. I think they fell, obviously, one point short of their goal. But I think it was a successful year. I mean, they had to learn to be winners. They had to learn to be at the top of, the food chain of teams that you wanted to beat. And Shirley was that team in Christchurch that you actually really wanted to beat. I think for teams like St Bede's in Christchurch and Nelson and that in the UC Cup. They weren't used to a team like Shirley Boys being up there or being present or being at the top of the ladder or showing week to week that they were a team not to be sort of messed with. And so even though the Shirley Boys had to get used to that fact, also the competition had to get used to that fact as well. And so it was interesting to see. I think it was cool seeing players like Boris come into it. Van Bruchem, I think his last name is. A lock who people didn't really see as a guy that was that effective or that dominant, and then he ended up making the Crusaders and playing that role along with Cruz and along with Logan and also Josh. Archer. This team was actually really stacked, and I was actually quite surprised that they didn't beat Christchurch Boys, because I actually think, sort of as a roster standpoint, man to man, when you sort of match them up, I did think that Shirley Boys had it over them. But like some schools, and I've always kind of believed this, like some schools, some boys are just used to winning. Some boys just know that when they step out on the field, lace up their boots, put on their jersey, get their liniment going and strapping tape, they know that they're coming off the field after that and the W's next to their name on the scorecard. And I think Shirley boys ain't like that. I mean, like, if you look at teams like Christchurch boys or like Otago boys or Hamilton boys or, say Kennegans and Kings and Mags and Hastings, teams like that around the country that are used to winning, that are used to being at the top, they just have that mentality, and that mentality goes through everybody in the school, goes through everybody within that sport, that that once you hit first 15, we're going to be winners too, and we're going to show you why we're winners. I think Shirley boys weren't at that stage, and so they're kind of like Christ College, where they knew that they were good, but they weren't used to winning themselves. They always had that mentality of, we lose all the time, or every year we lose, and then all of a sudden you have a superstar team like they did this year, and then they came up to these big games and they just weren't used to winning. They didn't know how to take that winning, and they didn't know how to protect that win. I mean, they had their first game against Ashburton, and they won 38-14, which was good. And that was the other thing I wasn't keen on, was that I think that this team was an attacking team, but it wasn't a really strong defensive team, which was weird, because I know that Sam and the twins, Sam and also Brendan are good league players, and good defensive minded players, along with Logan. But for some reason there wasn't like real big blowouts, which I thought there should have been. I mean, they only just won by 1 point against Marlborough boys. Burnside, I think they struggled a bit at first five. To me, they struggled at first five, and I thought Jackson Taylor maybe being a bit pressured by situations a lot. Didn't get the ball out a lot faster. And I mean, of course, against Burnside, you'll always have someone like Cam, who's going to pressure you from the open side and take off your inside really, really fast. But it just seemed to be like they weren't always scoring. I mean, their first loss came against Timaru boys, which shouldn't have happened, 17-15. And then they only beat Kings High School 24-17, which was hard. Even if you rested players, you still shouldn't be just beating teams like Kings High School, because they obviously, there's not a big downer to Kings High School, but Kings High School didn't deserve to be on that level. And so, like, I felt that there was always a defensive struggle to that side of things. And I think if I worked out the average of how many points were scored per game, I think it would be pretty high. I don't think it would be a low score. I think it would be pretty high. And so for me, if you're averaging over something like 18 points, if you're averaging over 18 points, I think that there is cause to say that you have a defensive problem within your squad. That's just the way that I see it anyway. And so for me, I think that would be the same as them too. I mean, even their game against Christ College, where they lost 33-10, was surprising. It really was. And I didn't even know what to make out for it, what to sort of make of it, because it just didn't seem like that should have been the game. And then a couple of weeks later, they beat Christ College 14-17, and so I was just like, well, that seems better and that seems right, but what happened a couple of weeks before that? Things like that, as well as always the kind of questions that I ask. Then they go off to beat Burnside, and then they fall short of Christchurch 2 weeks in a row, which was hard, 2 weeks in a row. But yeah, I'm not too sure how much players are returning. I know that there's a few. Glenn is obviously, Beardsley is obviously going to be returning. Jack Taylor, I heard, was returning as well. And they did have some young guys that were coming up, but it always just depends. Like sometimes I don't know, because I don't get sent rosters and things like that, or sometimes I don't know who's coming through, or how old this kid is, or what year he is actually in and things like that. And so I really don't know, but hopefully if they're still taking the same kind of blueprint in which they work this team to, then they're going to have a really good team when they come back next year. And hopefully some of that second 15 or under 16s, under 15s will feed up into that first 15, and then they have a really good young pack coming back. Maybe have a bit of a down year next year, and to come back into the next 2018 with a really strong team again. That would be really cool if Shirley has something set up like that, Shirley boys. But yeah, we'll see how they go next year. See what gaps they can fill up, and it'll be interesting to see. That's my review of Shirley boys 2016. Peace. Thanks a lot.